Welcome back to Young Tripp Reactions. The next video we're going to do is cop slams teenage girl, triggering a seizure. Let's get into it.
Cop slammed and injured a 14-year-old girl. It's under review, and the cop keeps his job. Hell of a thing.
This is absolutely a shame, and this is why I hold these uncivilized humans accountable. As a person who always wanted to do this job, he slammed a 14-year-old young woman, a 14-year-old young girl to the ground. This is absolutely crazy. Let's get into it.
Put it up for a mass.
Put it up for a mass.
A disturbing story. Officer Hasun Rogers, a North Carolina school resource officer, who body slammed a 14-year-old girl named Cathey, has been suspended without pay, according to the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department.
Suspended without pay. First time I've ever heard that in my life. We got to do the 3 claps, y'all. That's right. Suspended without pay. When you want to be an uncivilized human, then that's exactly what should happen to you. Let's get more into it.
Officer Rogers slammed the freshman to the ground on her back and head. The letter obtained by the Charlotte Observer said she immediately lost consciousness and experienced the seizure.
Instantly lost consciousness and triggered a seizure. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and join the Young Tripp family. Yeah, this is absolutely insane. Let's continue.
As a result of being slammed by the cop. Immediately lost consciousness and experienced the seizure as a result of being slammed by the cop. Her attorney, Michael Littlejohn, told the Charlotte Observer she has suffered a serious brain injury after the October 31st incident. WBTV reports
a serious brain injury. This kind of reminds me of Mike Hardy here in Kansas City. I'm surprised. I don't know if Rashad, if he's heard about this, where he was riding through downtown here in Kansas City, him and his girlfriend on their bicycle, and they biked through some barricades that was, I guess it wasn't pulled all the way over to block off, and him and his girlfriend was able to squeeze through, and they snatched him off the bike and slammed him on his head, with him suffering a traumatic brain injury. These uncivilized human cops need to be held accountable for their behaviors. As a person who always wanted to do this job, but it's good to be sitting right here to hold these uncivilized humans accountable for their behaviors. Let's continue.
Learned months after the incident that Rogers was actually only suspended for 2 days. He was also removed as the school's resource officer, but he was not terminated at all.
That is absolutely insane. So they just removed him from being a school resource officer and just turned him into a regular officer. These uncivilized humans have to be terminated, not be sent to go be regular police officers. Absolutely not. He then slammed a freshman on their head, a high school freshman on their head, and made them have a seizure and went instantly unconscious. This is crazy, yeah. And still working. That uncivilized mutt should be out of a job. Let's continue.
Put it up for a mass.
Put it back up for a mass.
The Observer reported Rogers' suspension is a result of an ongoing internal affairs investigation that was completed just last month. the outlet obtained a letter signed by CMPD Chief Estella Patterson and the Internal Affairs Major Brian Tripp that lays out what happened. According to this letter, West Charlotte High School's principal approached him on October 31st and warned him about a potential gang fight after school dismissal. Now, before I continue, I want to emphasize the atmosphere. This is a school resource officer. I happen to be friends with some resource officers. They typically, the good ones, they view their jobs as more of a mentor than a cop when it comes to the way they...
Facts. And I've met school resource officers from back, like in my high school days too, that real nice, real cool. They always would, talk to me when I would come in, make sure that I was all good. Also, like with my eyesight, this is obviously when I was also attending my public high school, because I also attended my public high school along with my school for vision loss. And when I would go in, the school resource officers, they, would, clear the way, make sure that I can get through, knowing that there was a crowded hallway, even though, I could still see pretty well. They still just wanted to make sure I got through good, safe, and sound. So kind of like what Rashad is saying, there are plenty of good resource officers that's not trying to act like a cop, be a cop. This uncivilized human was trying to be a cop, knowing that he was actually a resource officer at the moment, that he was placed on resource duty at a school, or applied, or whatever he decided, or however that came about for him. But as soon as the principal, gave him that information of a possible school gang fight or something like that, oh, let me spring into cop action. Yes, I've been waiting for this. And he just ended up slamming a high school freshman, on her head and made her have a seizure and go instantly unconscious. Absolutely crazy. Let's continue.
Engage with the student population. So the principal gives intelligence or information to the school resource officer about a potential gang fight, all right? And warned about this potential gang fight after school when students were dismissed. Many began running towards the parking lot where Rogers and two other CMPD officers were, according to the Observer. That's when officers alerted dispatch of a large crowd forming and requested additional units to help with crowd control. School staff were also present. The Observer reports Rogers drew his taser, scanned the crowd, and pressed the arc button to disperse the crowd. A taser's arc button causes it to zap as a warning. After the fight broke up, Rogers saw a student assaulting another student. Again, the Observer reports Rogers stood up and pressed the arc button to disperse the crowd. The 14-year-old in question punched a staff member and a student on the ground, the Observer reported, and Rogers pushed her away. Quote, Officer Rogers then wrapped his arms. Now remember, this is their account. Officer Rogers then wrapped his arms around the 14-year-old girl, her upper body, while still holding his taser in his left hand. The letter obtained by the Observer said, quote, Officer Rogers lifted this 14-year-old girl off the ground above his waist while she flailed her arms. Officer Rogers stated he was struck when he slammed her down and she had a seizure. He called for paramedics, the Observer reports. The Atlanta Black Star reached out to CMPD for a statement. They have yet to hear back. It is unclear if the student's family is seeking legal action. So let me first note
They need to seek legal action immediately against this uncivilized human and the police department. This is absolutely a shame as a person who always wanted to do this job to see these uncivilized people doing this job and don't know how to do it properly. Let's continue.
You have some contradictory statements here by way of the experience of the student and the official proclamation from the police department. But let's take the police department's report. So according to the police department, there's a fight. We're not aware if this fight or the young lady involved is engaged in defending herself or not. Why? Because that's not part of the police record. She could very well have been the target of gang activity. And I would assume that if she was the aggressor, that would have been noted in the police proclamation. But it is not. So in this report, the officer observes a fight, or at least combat. And in utilizing the ARC option to disperse the crowd with his taser, he then grabs the 14-year-old girl while holding a taser in one hand and lifting this child up in the air and throwing this child on the ground. Now you have your body slam, where you slams the girl into the ground so hard, so vicious, that it causes her to immediately have brain damage or brain injury and start seizing. Now, that is basically the report from the police, okay? Once again, it doesn't talk about the other elements that are the cause and effect. It does put in that
because it could have been like some other young girls trying to attack her. She could have been, like Rashad said, the main target of the whole thing, and he just slams her straight to the ground. Absolutely crazy. Let's continue.
Principal is the one who started this by saying there's going to be a gang fight or potential gang fight after. Doesn't talk about the other elements that are the cause and effect. It does put in that the principal is the one who started this by saying there's going to be a gang fight or potential gang fight after class is dismissed. The real question is this: did the officer utilize appropriate force in disrupting said combat? Or did the officer engage in excessive force by injuring a 14-year-old girl, by treating that 14-year-old girl as if that is a 40-plus-year-old grown man? By treating that 14-year-old girl as if that is a 40-plus-year-old grown man? That's a question. That's a question. Should a resource officer be engaged in such extreme violence against a 14-year-old child? And once again, we don't have cause and effect on record yet because the police have not provided it. All right, dear brother, thoughts here.
Well, a 14-year-old petite girl was slammed to the floor by what seemed to be a 215-pound adult male police officer. That's problematic, especially for an officer that works around children all day long. This is their job. There has to be some form of sensitivity and awareness training. Did I feel an imminent threat? Did this 14-year-old have a gun or a sword or a knife or maybe ninja skills that were never expressed to us? I need to understand why this was even allowed in the first place. Restraint should have been enough. Secondly, if this was Cathey Kennedy, a little white girl, 14-year-old, as opposed to Kennedy Cathey, would there have been a different response, especially on behalf of the police department and the township? Why are there even gangs in Charlotte, Mecklenburg to begin with? There's a lot of unanswered questions that have remained unanswered that don't need to be. These are things that transparency and accountability can speak up for, but sometimes, and this is a perfect example, we don't see that from the police. This is the blue wall, except this wall is one that our own children are climbing.
Well said. And you know, and I know, there's no way to conduct a proper investigation in 2 days. If the suspension was for 2 days, and this cop was cleared soon after that, what kind of exhaustive investigation was applied prior to the conclusion made by the department? And I will say this, the department made the decision to withdraw this resource officer from being a resource officer, which would lead me to believe that the cop did something unbecoming of a resource officer. Because if this cop was the example of what a resource officer should do, why remove the cop from being this example resource officer at their local school? We got a lot of questions, and we will give you answers as the story updates.
Yeah, because he wasn't doing the right thing. That's why. To slam a child on their head, causing them to have a seizure, because the principal told you that there was a possible gang fight after school today, is absolutely a shame. How do you know that she was involved? How do you know that she wasn't the target, as Rashad said? How do you, there's, most schools have 100 and something people to 200 and something people, if not more, in that school. So how do you know? Your job is supposed to observe, and then when something happens, then you would call for backup, and then you start to try to disengage everything. That's the job of a resource officer. Instead, he was so happy to be in cop mode, because probably, I'm guessing, not a lot of stuff must not happen at this school. So he was just so happy that something popped off for him to have something big to do, and was acting like a big old superhero cop, took this young girl, slammed her into the ground. That is absolutely crazy. Let me know what y'all think. I'll have the original video pinned to the top of the chat as always, and in a link in the description. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification, join the Young Tripp family. The original video, like I said, will be in the pinned comment and in the description. I'll have my cover put over the top. As always, there's not really nothing to see anyway. It's just Rashad and him talking. And I will catch y'all in the next one. Peace.